Hi.
We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. So I say all of, I say all of this, or, okay. We'll do our best to facilitate a smooth meeting with public participation via Zoom and webcast. Before we begin, some important guidelines and general instructions for the meeting. Please silence your cell phones or other communication devices. And during the meeting, all public participants will be placed on mute by the host. Public members will not be able to unmute or to mute or unmute manually. Audio from members of the public will be unmuted once they are recognized to make a public comment. And at this point, I would like to call for the clerk to do a roll call.
Okay. Esperanza Vielma?
Here.
John Sanders?
Here.
Keith Freitas? Nayamin Martinez? Laura Gutiel?
Here.
Through the chair, we have a quorum.
Okay. Okay, and then at this point in time, if you could take a look at the minutes from January 2023 meeting of the Grants Committee, and if there are any questions or comments, we can have an approval for that. Okay, seeing no objections.
We'll need to call for public comments on the minutes. Are there any public comments in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Are there any public comments in Modesto?
No public comment in Modesto.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment? Seeing none and none online.
Okay. Thank you. And I have no comments at this point in time, so we can just, other than this is my first time doing this Grants Committee, so we can just jump right into the discussion and approval of the recommendations.
Actually, through the chair, I am going to just, we do have to call for public comments, the item number 4 public comments.
Yes.
So this is for items that are not on the agenda. Bakersfield, do you have any public comments on item 4, general public comments?
There are no public comments in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Any public comments in Modesto for general public comments?
No public comment in Modesto.
Thank you. And there are no members of the public in Fresno or online.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Awesome. I can help us kick off. So it sounds like for item 5, the chair has no comments. So I'm happy. This is Jessica Olson. I'm happy to help us kick off the item number 6, which is discuss and approve recommendations for the 2024-2025 budget. So as we discussed, when you all were appointed to this standing subcommittee, EJAG does play a pivotal role in working to help ensure that the grants programs that we operate here at the district serve our disadvantaged communities and environmental justice communities. Aaron, who is a program manager with our grants department, has a presentation that he's prepared to give to you all should you request it. But the packet that you have before you today that's titled the EJ Advisory Group Grants Committee Recommendations for Use of District Funds. These are the recommendations that were provided last year. And generally the way that the EJAG usually goes about it is you all, if there are recommended changes to this is the body that would make those recommended changes to the EJAG body at the meeting that starts at 5:30. So the presentation today can help guide those recommendations, but really this is your set of recommendations. This is not the district's recommendation. So I'll just say that we have not made any changes to this because it's not really our thing. It's more of the EJAG's responsibility. But again, we do have two, actually Brian Dodds is here as well from our a program manager with our grant department. So we have 2 grants managers here to answer questions or even walk you through a presentation should you want it. So I'll turn it back to the chair for next steps.
Okay. I'm not quite sure. So
I guess I'll just say if you want to ask if or anyone on the EJAG membership is interested in having Aaron or the team walk through the district budget spending plan, or if you want to take a look kind of in your purview as chair through the recommendations that are before you all today to just facilitate a discussion on any recommended changes that the subcommittee has.
And maybe I can add just a little bit to that. Maybe John, I saw you digging through your papers. Did you get this form here? Do you have that one there?
I have the recommendation for use of district funds for 2023-2024.
Yeah, so that was last year's recommendations. So we're kind of taking those and moving those forward to say, well, for the following or the upcoming budget year, which would start in July, would you want to add to these or keep them the same? So what we're kind of proposing today to the committee is that here's what was approved last year for the EJAG recommendations. Would you want to add to these? Would you want to have comments on these? And we can go through the presentation, quickly if you want to, and kind of go through them one by one and see if you want to add any recommendations from the subcommittee to the full committee later on today. Say, hey, we took it last year's, we like those, we want to keep them the same or add one to it or something like that. It's kind of up to you how you want to do it. But this is basically kind of a summary of what was recommended last year, essentially what this 2-page thing is here. And then the presentation just goes through the monies essentially and kind of goes how much money was allocated to these things. And then it shows these were the recommended EJ categories essentially.
So I think being that this is my first time sitting on the committee, I'd like to go through the presentation. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, we can go through it and just answer some questions and just, because it's pretty self-explanatory, just kind of goes through it. Maybe just answer the questions you may have and maybe answer any questions you may have about the programs we have, perhaps. And then maybe we'll do it that way. It might be easier to do it that way than kind of go through it. It's not, like I said, it's not fully in depth. It's just kind of a summary of our budget there. So, like I said, my name is Aaron Tarango. I'm a program manager in the grant department, along with Brian Dodds here as well. He's a program manager. And I think we can answer most of your questions, I hope, today. That might come up about the... so here is just a history of over the last 10 years of our grant programs. Overall, the first bullet's what we've done. If you looked at the total amount of dollars that is spent in grants for us and the public-private, it's been about over $6 billion that's been invested to replace equipment throughout the San Joaquin Valley, that's a large number, dating back to the history of the district. And the numbers below are the last 10 years, what we've done. And I'm not going to read all those there, but you can see some highlights. Some of the big ones that stick out to me are ag equipment replacements, over 14,000 over the last 10 years. Another big one up there is 26,000 fireplace changeouts over the last 10 years. And they're a rather large one. The largest one on the deal there is new alt fuel vehicles, hybrids or electric vehicles, 35,000 or so. So those are the ones that really stick out. And the other one is repairs, how many repairs we've done. 2 light duty vehicles, over almost 90,000 vehicles have been repaired over the last 10 years. So those are the really ones that stick out to me. Any questions on this slide here? No? Okay, I'll move on to the next one. Oh, yeah, sure.
So this is what we've done.
Yes.
Are we? And as we get further in, are we going to say if we want to look at any changes? Is that what how we're going?
The slides going forward say, do you want to have any recommendations from the EJAG committee to the district as what you want to fund in the next budget year? What categories would you like to recommend we fund next budget year?
Is that discussion now, or should I?
The next slides will get into that.
Okay.
Yeah. This is just kind of a summary history type thing right there. As you can see, these are the recommendations. This started with AB 2522, going back to 2008, I think, maybe 2007 when that was enacted. And part of that was the requirements was to spend at least $10 million in EJ communities, which we've exceeded that by far. And then also talk about EJAG. EJAG was kind of created in that process as well, I believe. And then some of those things in there when they first got started was how would like the money be spent in these categories down here at the bottom. You know, EJ areas for school buses, drive clean, basically new electric cars, fireplace change outs. These are just some of the things that EJ considerations in these programs to spend in low income areas, which we've done throughout the years. Here's just a review of what that document is in front of you. This is just a review of that, what's been recommended. If you look at the numbers 1 through 6, this is a summary of the handout you have in front of you. So I'm not going to go through all those, but this is just a summary of this was been recommended in the past, and this was recommended last fiscal year of what the EJ community or EJ committee, EJAG committee wanted to focus on was replacing school buses, replacing on-road heavy-duty trucks, light-duty passenger vehicles, heavy-duty engine program, forklifts, off-road equipment, ag engines. Also doing like bike paths, you know, where we can do those. Fireplace wood stove change outs, do those. The EJAG recommended those last year. Go to the next one here. Actually, I think all 6 on here are ground safe. Yeah, so these were the recommendations that EJAG had last year as far as what they wanted the district to spend their funds on, which I think we fulfilled, I think, over the last fiscal year. Okay. Here was the spending. So yeah.
Okay. So in regards to the review of the previous recommendations, I noticed there's a lot of push for, you have the ag or non-combustion motorized vehicles, but now we've kind of got the brake's been put on for a time period. Is there another the current recommendations that are on this page? Is it possible that like these could change, or are these what we have and then we're working with it?
That's the goal of this subcommittee is what would you like to add to that? What else would you like the EJAG subcommittee to recommend to the EJAG committee that the district focuses funds on?
I've gone through the site and I'm not perfect at surfing the web, but the electric fireplace, I see something where you could disable your fireplace, but not, I guess I have to go to those vendors that sell the gas-powered natural gas ones and then find out if they have an electric option. Is that what I'm understanding? Because I have some questions from people that I work with when they found out where I was going today.
Yeah, so we have a list of approved vendors for our fireplace and wood stove changeout program that assist applicants with turning in applications and making the change outs of their device. The goal is to take the wood burning type devices out and replace them with something that's much cleaner.
Okay, and that's on that. So I need to look more diligently. That's on the site, right?
That's on our website. It's the fireplace and wood stove changeout program that's on our grants and incentives website within the Air District. There are options for like electric heat pumps, natural gas inserts, stoves, and natural gas type fireplaces. But what we don't do is electric, like display kind of decorative electric fireplaces that you might see out there.
Okay.
They had to be for heating.
Yeah, the idea is it's kind of somebody's primary or a source of heat.
Source of heat.
The electric, they're getting a little bit better, but they're not necessarily designed as like a heating source, more like it looks nice type of thing.
yeah, as much as they cost and how much they draw, how much electricity they draw, they should heat your house, but that's fine. I can look back into that.
Yeah, so that program is within the number 6 item on slide 4, wood stove and fireplace change out program. And that's typically been, one of the main focus areas for the EJAG committee, and that it helps with those like localized impacts from the wood burning.
May I refer to number 4?
Sure.
Okay. So you have off-road equipment, including construction and portable equipment. So one of the things I know, my colleagues have what we call off-road or doors, where they have the rigs that go out and will abandon wells. Is that part of this? Would that be part of this heavy-duty engine program? This construction equipment that's, the only time it would be on a road is when it's going from one site to the other. Is that something that is still being funded and still available?
Yes and no. It depends on the size of their fleet that's indoors. As you know, the offer, maybe not know, but the regulation has different sizes of fleets that are eligible for funding for the off-road regulation, non-ag off-road regulation, which is any fleet that has a combined horsepower of 5,000 and above is a large fleet. And they're already in their compliance window to start really ratcheting down. So there's no funds available for those guys. There's a medium size fleet now, go from 2,500 horsepower combined to 499.99. Those are the medium guys, and those guys are in the SNAP count as well for the final regulation compliance. The only ones we could possibly fund in that category would be the small fleet guys that have less than 25 horsepower combined. Less than 2,500 combined horsepower of their fleet, where there might be some windows in there to fund those guys. And if you have any that you know of, we'd be glad to talk to them. But they're harder and harder to fund. We're trying to, but they're harder and harder to fund as of this point in time. But yeah, we still try to fund them. And any windows that exist out there to fund them before the regulation requires them to change something out, we try to fund those guys.
Okay, so I'll take it a step further. The ACF, the all clean fleets, it seems like I don't know where it came from, but every time everyone I know that's part of an all clean fleet, it feels like the Air Board or whoever, EJAG, someone's always shooting the people in the feet. And is there a reason that, I can tell you that I know 2 companies that are paying guys a lot of money just to make sure that they get everything in and have everything precise. Is there some way to get the people with all clean fleet status to be eligible for some funding?
If you have fleets out there for on-road heavy duty trucks for the advanced clean fleet regulation, if they're out there, we'd like to talk to them. We do have funding for those guys to go to electric trucks. And each fleet's a little different. Each fleet comes into compliance differently, I should say, or just different avenues. So there's not a one size fits all for those guys. So whatever fleet wants to do it, they would come to us individually. We would go through their fleet and see what avenues we have to fund their projects. So there is money available, but it's a fleet by fleet determination.
So if we are to say that our light duty, we're able to go and get electric trucks for supervisors and things like that, if we were able to do that, I guess this might be a sidebar that we have this conversation offline.
Yeah, I would like for them to come talk to our team, our on-road heavy-duty team that does heavy-duty trucks. We have a pretty good team that can actually go through them one by one with their fleet and see how we can help them.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'd be more happy to do that. That'd be terrific.
Thank you. Okay, I'll end this round right here.
Okay. Like I said, this is good. The interactive. It's not designed just me sit up here and talk in presentation, just to try to spur some questions along here. As you can see, the last year, the budget for the district incentive programs was over $650 million just at. And below that, some of the things we look at when we try to fund projects or when we do fund projects, how cost effective is it? What are you getting with the money? What emission reductions you're achieving from that? The inventory of projects, what can you fund out there? We talked about the construction fleets out there. Those are getting harder and harder to fund because the regulations taking credit for those reductions, right? So you got to look for those windows. I like to call them windows to see how you can fund these projects. When does the money have to be liquidated? A lot of the funds that the district gets has liquidation deadlines to spend it by. They want, the state gives it to us, or the federal government gives it to us. They want the money spent by a certain deadline to make sure they achieve those reductions. So, what projects can we do it that way? Environmental justice. Are we spending money in environmental justice areas? That's a big target for the district, obviously. We try to spend 50 to 80% of our funds in those communities. Any upcoming regulation deadlines? We talked about for the off-road regulation, when are those deadlines coming up and how far in advance can we fund those projects before the regulation takes effect? That's a big portion of it. The health benefits, obviously, near sensitive receptors, where these located at, we can pinpoint some projects to fund those projects. I was doing in AB 617. Promoting technology is a big thing for us. We've done it for many years, is getting new technology out there. And obviously the big one right now is electric heavy duty trucks. We're funding some fleets out there and have them test it out. Even off-road equipment as well as electric tractors has been a big thing. And then obviously community involvement. And we have a big program here that Jess heads up for the AB 617 communities. Those are very interactive communities that we're involved in on a daily, monthly, weekly basis to make sure we're benefiting those communities out there. Here's kind of, sure.
Okay, so you just talked about the timeframes and environmental justice and community involvement and the technology advancements. Are we finding, I'm new to this, so I'm gonna try and find myself here. The health benefits, I'm an asthma patient myself. I have bad allergies. I know when the trees are being shook. I know when this stuff's happening. And I don't know it because I'm driving down the road. I know it because it's coming in my window. But the technology advancement is one thing that I'm noticing on a lot of these people with the all clean fleets. They need trucks with PTOs. They need trucks that run for 10 hours a day. They need things like that. And I know personally we're trying to find a way to build a huge battery that goes on the back of one truck so it can go keep all the other trucks going. If we ever had to come down to this and have an electric truck, but I'm still electric heavy duty truck. I'm still having a hard time finding one of these trucks that has a PTO that is functional for any amount of time. So instead of fighting it, we've gone and thought, hey, let's try and figure this out. We're literally, there's 3 people in our company just ordered Tesla trucks because we said, hey, they want us to do this. We're going to go get these trucks. And instead of Yukons, we're going to drive Tesla trucks. But this promoting technology advancement, how are we doing that? What is?
Well, I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, one of the big projects we did was to test it out was electrifying the way that feed is mixed at dairies. They did it with heavy duty trucks and with tractors with a PTO mixing either a mixer behind the tractor, revving it up with the PTO, or a PTO on the back of a truck mixing the feed. And they were basically running those things, 20 hours a day, depends on the size of the dairy. So we did one of these projects where we electrified it, where all of the feed is brought into a electrified mixer, and that is mixed up, and then with conveyors, it's conveyed out to trucks that simply deliver it. And some of those projects would reduce, over maybe 50 to 100 tons of emissions over like a 5 or 10 year life. So that's the way we did it. We worked with dairies to figure out how we could do that, how they could change their operation. So it wasn't just technology, but also how they operate was a big change. So that's one example that we've done, that we are trying to figure out a way to advance technology where to work in these communities.
Was there some cost savings with that electrification?
They found that they were running a lot less. There's one dairy out in Haffer that their run time to feed twice a day was like 20 hours. They reduced it down to 7.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it changed everything what they do how they do the dairy. It changed everything out there, and there was like unintended consequence of that, where they found, wow, we got a little more out of this than we thought, which was very cool.
That's nice to.
Yeah, it was a very neat project. We're still in touch with that dairy. They're still giving us some feedback on that, so it's been a cool project. So that's just one example of something like that.
And through the chair, if I may, just for the sake of time, we do have our 5:30 regular meeting. I wonder if, I do know the remaining slides just happen to be the actual dollar amounts that are currently in our fiscal year spending plan. So maybe I'll just recommend that this can be, Aaron can maybe the presentation can be over if you want to reference maybe any of those numbers in the further discussions, or we can pause and let Aaron finish the full presentation. Well, that way we just move forward.
Maybe just highlight some of the money that was put into the EJAG recommendations, maybe.
Perfect. Maybe maybe Aaron can finish highlighting them, and then we'll finish with questions. Just that way we can try to see if we move forward, and then we can do a time check and see if we do need to pause and move, maybe have another subcommittee meeting if necessary.
Yeah, maybe we'll just hit the highlights of the EJAG recommendations, how much money was put into those this last fiscal year, or the fiscal year we're in right now, actually, I should say. So ag equipment replacement, ag tractors, about $180 million were put into that program last fiscal year, or the current fiscal year, I should say. It's kind of confusing, but basically, the fiscal year we're in right now, that was EJAG recommendation. We put a lot of money into that program. Ag pump replacement was another one, a little over $3 million into that. And at the bottom, heavy duty truck replacement. That was an EJAG recommendation, put over, almost $27 million in that program as well. So we're kind of following the EJAG recommendations to put, large sums of money in these projects to get them done. Fireplace changeouts was also a big one, almost $17 million went in that program. The drive clean repair program, the tune-in and tune-up events is where this kind of happens. $11 million to put into that program, along with the drive clean replacement programs, kind of under the same umbrella type of program, $17 million in that program. So that's been a big one for us. And vehicle miles travel reductions, VMT reductions down there, vehicle miles travel reductions programs. Bike pass, park and rides, $1 million put in that program as well, as they come into us from public agencies. This was the 617. We can go, I'm going to go into these, Jess. A lot of these, we just skip over these. These are specifically designed for the 4 communities in the valley, which we need to go over those, I guess.
No, I think that those are all pretty well covered.
Those are all,
617 discussions and whatnot.
Yeah, and then this just kind of closes out the last bit of the budget here. And you can see large sums of money are put into the Volkswagen Mitigation Trust to replace buses, on-field all ag burn alternatives, a big pot of money as well. So just, there's a lot going on, a lot of programs we run to get every emission reductions we can think of that's not required by regulation. That's kind of our goal there. Okay, that kind of sums it up or ends it there. Brian and I can answer any questions or other questions you might have for us. So we'll do our best to answer your questions there.
And through the chair, as a reminder, as you can see in the recommendations, it's not recommended numbers or funding amounts. It's really just recommended areas of focus. And so any changes or additions from those recommended areas of focus within that particular 2-pager is what would then be voted on in this subcommittee and moved on to the next EJAG meeting at 5:30.
Okay. SB, do you have anything that you want to discuss, add?
Yeah, I do remember previously on the other grants committee, and it's on there as far as the light duty passenger vehicle component where we had the bicycle voucher. What I don't recall is if we were funding, when the bicycle voucher component was added to that, was that including electric bikes? And do we have that now as a recommendation? And then also, I'll just do all mine at once. And then The other part for the Tune and Tune Up, that is like a great program. We partner with them a lot. And so Jose Marin and all the group out there, they do a great job of, you know, getting the word out and then getting those vehicles replaced. So anything that we can do to help support that, I think that takes out a lot of the emission causing vehicles. So anything that we can do on our behalf, you know, more than happy to help with that. And so my question was the e-bikes. Another question I had was when we're talking about the funding, I think we talked about this previously. So we have a number of applications that come in for these different areas of funding for incentive programs. And then that's like first come, first serve, and then those that qualify. I don't know if I've seen a report where it says, you know, X amount of applications came in for all these various areas. And then, you know, X amount, well, we know what was funded. So then we know how high of a demand there is. The one that I do know, obviously, is the vehicle replacement, because I get the calls from the folks that say, hey, I've been waiting for a long time and this hasn't opened up yet. So I know that has to do with the timing and funding, what have you. But I think in the reporting component, that would be really helpful to us that are like forward facing with the community, because then we're able to answer those questions when we have like the numbers of applications that came in, how many were funded, and then how many are still in the queue waiting for the next cycle of funding. And then the other question I had was, are tugboats included in this at all? Because I know that was an AB 617 component, but I don't know if there's anything coming down the pipeline for that, since the Port of Stockton sits adjacent to one of the most severely underserved EJAG communities there in San Joaquin County. And so those are my questions and comments. Thank you.
Thanks, SB.
SB, good questions. I'll take the e-bike one for now. So within our vehicle replacement program, there are options that basically, instead of getting a replacement car, somebody could get funding to get an electric bike. It's really not a great option in the sense that most people are not going to turn in their car and get a bike. So as people are going through that program, we talk to them about the various options that are available. The second option that might be available for e-bikes is that there is a e-bike program that's funded through CARB that will be available, and it's specifically designated for low-income residents and disadvantaged communities throughout the state. And people can get up to $2,000 for an electric bike, depending on income and things along those lines. So really, that's probably the best option for somebody to get incentives for electric bikes that might be interested, and that then they don't have to turn in their car. That's just a straight like incentive to get a bike. So those are a couple of the issues. In our MOIR program, is that I guess we're working with the port on identifying some projects, but that tugboat might be in one of those potential projects.
There's a bigger project working right now with some of the new federal dollars that came, the IRA funds from the federal government, to do some projects like that. And electric tugboats is definitely something that's on our radar to do for the Port of Stockton. These are, it's a very complicated project, so we're working through to see how to pull something like that off at this point in time, and see if it will work for them. But we're in constant communication with the Port of Stockton. I know through AB 617 and plus the grant team is trying to figure out ways to fund things at the port out there.
Okay, thank you. And then so with that CARB e-bike, I think that's a great opportunity for our community members. So as that comes through, any kind of information we can receive, that would be great, especially since the mobility grant that they have over in Stockton, they removed all the electric bikes because there were issues with vandalism, not from the people utilizing them, but like at night. And so I don't think they're replacing that component of the mobility grant there. So I think that would be a great opportunity for our community members. And with regards to the actual applications and getting that information, would that be possible?
Well, I can say that all these programs are currently open and accepting applications. They're available to take advantage of as we speak. All 6 of these projects that are listed from the EJAG recommendations.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Okay, John, do you have anything else to discuss?
Well, I'm just going to ask a question. I'm not really done kind of mulling through this, but people are going to vote on us in the next hour. And then, is that what I'm understanding correctly?
Through the chair, I can kind of help remind kind of the process. So, so typically, usually something happens in January. So usually it's a little bit earlier. We did not have an October meeting, so we were unable to appoint the subcommittee to have this in January. So we're doing it now. We're still in the middle of our budget process, as Aaron explained, to adopt our recommended budget through the governing board that takes effect on July 1st. So we have traditionally gone through a process where we go to EJAG and get some recommendations for high-level discussions. One of the things that's mentioned at the bottom of these recommendations is that any recommended changes as needed due to changes in programs or funding is that EJAG retains the ability to make any recommended changes or continue to talk about funding district programs at any one of our meetings throughout the year. This is just the opportunity to provide sort of high-level guidance from EJAG to our APCO as he works with his board to adopt the district's program guidelines. So I think maybe to alleviate a little bit of, this is maybe a lot to mull over and discuss, is that maybe some of your questions high level can be answered. If the subcommittee is comfortable with voting on today, that is the goal, is to vote on that at the EJAG meeting. However, as other questions come up or there's other discussion needed, we can certainly flag that for you. And I've already heard promises from our management team to continue to have offline conversations or even bring back for other EJAG discussion some of these points. Even our EJAG meeting later today has in-depth discussion about several of our grant programs.
Thank you.
Are there any public comments?
Do we have any public comments in Bakersfield?
No public comments in Bakersfield.
Thank you. In Modesto, do you have any public comments?
No public comment in Modesto.
Thank you. There's no members of the public in Fresno and none online.
Okay. So I guess my question is, John, are you comfortable suggesting to approve the guidelines as they are going into our EJAG meeting, or do you want to have the possibility of the subcommittee meeting again?
I propose that I have an offline meeting with the gentleman and another subcommittee meeting, because there's just some unanswered questions, and we could sit here till 10 o'clock tonight with everything that I've been talking to people saying, hey, I'm going in. You know, we've been asking, and a lot of the stuff I knew, but some of it I don't, and I don't think, I'm not comfortable because I don't have some things ironed out at this moment.
Okay, I understand that completely.
And through the chair, just to add a couple more things.
Yes,
one, obviously respect the will of the subcommittee. Our next EJAG meeting is not until April, the end of April. And so just in terms of timing with our budget process, that doesn't mean, again, at any point the EJAG is welcome and we are eager to hear from EJAG recommendations on spending plan and highlights. I will just iterate that, and maybe we can walk through in the time that we have left, which is 10 minutes, the high level pieces that are in the recommendations here. And once again, just that none of this has anything necessarily about program guidelines. That's, all subject for discussion and change as we, adopt new programs or amend new programs. It's not about program funding availability. It's really just about targeting. And I think we're all open, or, you as chair can be open to any suggested high level changes that might make the subcommittee feel comfortable. Again, recommend, respecting that if that's not the case. But I do want to say that if there are, language changes that might make the subcommittee feel more comfortable for taking this to the EJAG at the next meeting, then that can be done here as well.
Again, I'm not one to push myself into a corner. So everyone can vote. I get it. I'm just one person, but as of now, I'm not going to vote for this because I still have some things to hash out. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Through the chair, in the 10 minutes that we have, is there an opportunity to address the questions? This is really a pretty high level discussion about where EJAG thinks the district should spend its funding and resources. It's not necessarily do we think the district should have these programs or not. So maybe there's an opportunity in the next few minutes to answer the questions so that EJAG could make these recommendations.
Well, so to start with, I feel like people who are in the all clean fleets, the ACF, there's a huge prejudice against them. It's like everything here is for, the ACF. There are a lot of companies in Bakersfield, which is an underserved area, and there's probably 10,000 families throughout these areas, Arvin, Lamont, Shafter, Delano, Wasco, who come to these different places every day. That if these large companies, just because they're large doesn't mean that their cash flow is huge, because the people they work for don't let them make a lot of money. But the employers still go to work every day knowing that they're supporting this many people and they've become family to them. So, yeah, I mean, I guess to say if we were to open up ACF to some sort of other funding, I could start pushing that direction.
Through the chair, if I can help clarify, and maybe this is going to be a little helpful, John, and thank you for, I know you're being patient with us and helping walk you through this. The Advanced Clean Fleet, just as a reminder, that is a CARB, so not a district rule. And we are subject, for the type of funding we get, we are subject to guidelines for how we fund the turnover of trucks. And I'll turn it over to the program managers here in a second. But so it sounds like what you're talking about is you're talking a little bit more about the compliance with rules, coming online with that. That is not something the district has purview over. As a reminder, we are actually, to help with folks, get to cleaner vehicles, we are given funding and authorities to fund those, fleets and help that turnover. And so what we're talking about here today, it sounds like we're in alignment with you, is supporting all of those businesses and supporting all of the folks that are trying to do the right thing. And we're trying to just say that EJAG has one of their priorities is to continue down that path to support those folks that are being impacted by these rules and regulations that are coming down from the state. And so I don't know if there's specific questions about the funding available for those types of vehicles that the program managers maybe can walk you through and how that works for our spending plan.
Maybe I can add to that as the recommendation would be to that we want to make sure that heavy duty truck vehicle funding is continued, and we want to put money into that. EJAG recommends, yes, funding the replacement of heavy duty trucks to help fleets comply with the ACF regulation. That's like number 2 on the list here for on-road heavy duty trucks, is we will continue to work with fleets and see what avenues we can do to give them incentive funding to help comply with that regulation before the regulation makes them do it. That would be the goal of that.
And I wonder if maybe through the chair, what I'm hearing is maybe we can amend and make it more like stronger in the recommendation for number 2 that just says continue to focus on assisting truckers with accessing funds available to them too, and then the rest of that recommendation.
Yeah.
Maybe we could set up something in the like next week to kind of, you know, hurried decisions are those kind of decisions people look back and go, man, why did I do that? And I'm not a guy that drags my feet. I mean, I make $10 million decisions all day long. It's just, I'm looking at this going, you know what's happening in California and what's happening in San Joaquin Valley. You might say, well, we're helping with asthma, or we're helping with this, or we're helping with that, but we're just the sheep that are saying, oh yeah, we'll do it. And we're really not. Why we're doing some good things, we need to adjust some of the items as well. And that's why I'm pretty adamant. I mean, there's 3 people, or I guess 4, you know, if I choose to not select this, that's fine. There's 2 other people, depending on their opinion, then I can live with the fact that I stood by my decision. So I'm not really backing up off this. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, John. I really appreciate all of your comments. You know, being a farmer myself and in the farming community, you know, I can appreciate everything that you're saying. I like the idea of adding some stronger wording to the on-road heavy-duty vehicles. Number 2, just to be sure we do have a focus on that. SB, are you okay with that? Do you have anything else?
In terms of if we're not going to recommend and vote on this and take action today, going back to Jessica's point as far as what's needed to move forward with the staff to get to get this in the budget, how does that look, and what would we have to do, being that we're not going to have another meeting for EJAG this next month? So I guess if we can get some clarification on that before we enter into the next meeting.
Through the chair, per the EJAG bylaws, we do just need majority of members present for a yes vote. So I think we hear from Mr. Sanders that he, you know, maybe regardless of how the vote goes, I think we definitely would like to meet with him and continue to discuss his concerns. If there is, you know, through the other 2 members present, if there is a yes vote, we can move forward. So just to clarify that a little bit here. And then if not, then I think I'll have to take back, and maybe there can be maybe not formal recommendations, but you know, a discussion at the April meeting that can still be supportive as we move forward with implementing our spending plan into the year.
So my question to you, SB, is: are you prepared to vote to approve what we've got going right now with just the addition of stronger language in the number 2?
Yes, I'm prepared to move forward and vote. And I just wanted to make sure, to Jessica's point, that we don't miss any kind of deadline to get this into budget. So then if the meeting that we're having in April, you know, puts us at a disadvantage, is, you know, that's what I wanted to point out, that there are certain deadlines that need to be met. And this is a very high level. We recommend these areas, and then getting into the nitty gritty of it, I think, is what you know, Jessica and staff were referring to, that we could still continue to have these discussions, which we do. And that's why we're here as part of the EJAG. So yes, absolutely. I'm ready.
Okay. With that, I think we can go to the vote.
And so, yeah, just to clarify, the vote would be on the recommendations as they stand, with the addition of language that just highlights to continue to support fleets as they transition to cleaner vehicles, and just kind of strong language there leading into number 2.
Yes. So we need a motion and a second. So, Esty, would you like to move?
So I'll go ahead and motion for the subcommittee to approve, the grants committee to approve the language in the recommendation for the incentives, with the addition of the stronger language to be added with the heavy duty vehicles.
And I will second that.
Okay, I'll call for the vote. SB Vielma?
Yes.
John Sanders?
Nay.
Laura Gutiel?
Yes.
Okay, through the chair, motion passes.
Okay, I think with that, that wraps it up.
Technically still have item 7, second opportunity for public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay, are there any public comments in Bakersfield?
There are no public comments in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments in Modesto?
No public comment in Modesto.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment? Seeing none, and none online.
Okay. And then suggested items for the next EJAG Grants Committee agenda, which would be next year around this time, correct? I don't have any other than updates.
We'll plan to do the same thing, and like as I said, it was an odd year that timing wise, and so we'll have it planned for January of next year. So if we have a similar discussion with the subcommittee, we might have a little bit more time as well. Thank you.
Are there any other comments from any of the other SV, do you have any other comments you wanted to make?
No comment, thanks.
John? Okay, thank you. And with that, I'll call the meeting adjourned. Okay, the floor is mine. Oh my gosh. Hurry, look out. Okay. We do have quorum, so I would like to call our EJAG meeting to order. Thank you all for being here. We'll do our best to have a smooth meeting with public participation via Zoom and webcast. Before we begin, please silence all of your cell phones and other electronic devices. During the meeting, all public participants will be placed on mute by the host. Public members will not be able to mute or unmute manually. Audio from members of the public will be unmuted once they are recognized to make a public comment. At this time, I would like to call for the clerk to call roll call, please.
Okay. Naomi Martinez?
Here.
Randeep Graywal?
Here.
Keith Freitas? Laura Gutiel?
Here.
Dennis Brazil?
Here.
Esperanza Vielma?
Here.
Thomas Helm? Derek Williams?
Here.
Richard O'Brien? I think I saw Mr. O'Brien there.
Here.
Thank you. Ned Liba? John Sanders? Manuel Cunha? Chris McLaughlin. Through the chair, we have a quorum.
Okay. Thank you. And at this time, approval of minutes from January 25th, 2024.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from January 25th, 2024.
Second.
If there's no objections, you can deem the minutes approved. We just need to call for public comment.
Okay.
So do we have any public comment on the minutes in Bakersfield?
There are no public comments in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments on the minutes in Modesto?
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment? Seeing none, and then online.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Dennis Brazil. I was just curious why we don't call the vote on, it is an action item, but I know we never in the past have called it. I'm just curious why the reasoning of that is we don't call for the vote. Does somebody from staff know there?
Yes.
Go ahead. Through the chair, this is Jessica Olson. I at least as far as I've been online, it's been sort of the purview of the chair to decide. So it could be up to the chair's discretion if the chair would like to call for a vote. I think otherwise it's just a consensus-based, hearing no objections, it's moved on.
Yeah, I just, being that it was actioned, from my experience in elected official as proper protocol, we always call for the vote if it's an action item. So, yeah. Thank you.
And I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to call for the vote.
Okay, I'll call for the vote. And I'm sorry, Mr. Brazil, were you the one who made the motion to approve?
Yes.
Okay, and do we have a second?
Second, O'Brien.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Graywell?
I'll abstain since I wasn't here for that meeting.
Thank you. Ms. Gutierrez?
Yes.
Mr. Brazil?
Aye.
Ms. Vielma?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Okay, through the chair, motion passes.
Okay, thank you. And at this point in time, any public comments?
Okay, this is for item 4. These are for public comments not on the agenda. Are there any public comments in Bakersfield?
No public comments in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Are there any public comments in Modesto?
No public comments in Modesto.
Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment? Seeing none, and none online.
Okay, thank you. So we're now on number 5, chair comments. I think that this would be an appropriate time to introduce Mr. Randeep Gurwal. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to give you the floor if you'd like to introduce yourself to the rest of us, those that don't know you yet.
Hello, everyone. My name is Randeep Graywal, and I'm a recent law grad, and I have a self-employed business where I do consulting, tax preparation, and I've done that for about 15 or so years here in Kern County in Bakersfield, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
We're happy to have you. Thank you for being part of the team now. And so now we're to number 6, update on attainment plans and rules.
Good evening, Madam Chair and your board. Thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Emily Nealand. I'm the program manager of our air quality planning team here at the district. Here today to provide you with a few brief updates as well as a couple of slides on EPA's new PM 2.5 standard. So first, I'll just go through a few brief updates. On February 15th, we held a public workshop for our revised PM 2.5 plan for the 2012 annual PM 2.5 standard. It's a very successful workshop, a lot of public participation. Workshop materials were provided in both English and Spanish, and we also provided simultaneous Spanish interpretation during the meeting. Like I said, a lot of participation. The meeting lasted about 2 hours, so we're really happy with all of the comments that were provided, reviewing those, and plan development is ongoing. I know a few of you were in attendance, so appreciate your time. Additionally, on February 13th, we held a public workshop for amendments to Rule 4905, which is our rule for natural gas-fired fan-type central furnaces. The proposed amendments would extend the emissions fee option for manufactured homes from September 2023 to September 2025 based on an unavailability of the technology and to provide for consistency in comparison with other regions like South Coast. We did have, again, workshop materials available in both English and Spanish, and we provided simultaneous Spanish interpretation during the meeting. We've also published our proposed rule for 30-day review on February 20th ahead of our March governing board hearing. And then lastly, I have a couple of slides just to go over EPA's revised PM 2.5 standard. On February 7th, 2024, EPA announced a new annual standard, which would be lowered from the 12 microgram per cubic meter standard to 9.0 micrograms per cubic meter. They are proposing or finalizing, they're retaining the 24-hour PM 2.5 standard and the PM 10 standard. They're also updating the PM 2.5 air quality index scale, as well as other monitoring requirements. So this revised standard, once it's published, triggers a timeline for new planning actions, including requirements for the district to prepare an attainment plan for this new standard, which will build upon our previous PM 2.5 planning efforts. Just a visual here, historically with the previous PM 2.5 standards, the majority of the areas that have been in on attainment have been within California, such as the district and South Coast in the LA area. This new standard, because of how low it is, there's a lot of additional areas that will be impacted. So this figure depicts that. And then you can see here, EPA within their analysis has found that with existing control strategies, more than 99% of the counties in the nation would meet the standard by the 2032 attainment date, which would be the moderate area attainment date, but that does not include areas like the San Joaquin Valley. So again, we will have to go above and beyond what we've already done in order to meet this new standard. Just want to note that in 2023, we had an extremely clean year, so this just indicates significant progress that we've made. The new standard, again, will be extremely challenging, so we'll have to go above and beyond. EPA, within their analysis, included emission reduction measure scenarios, which actually fell short of the total reductions that would be needed for the valley to attain. So we'll be looking for additional opportunities, and we're already starting that analysis. No mobile source measures were evaluated or considered by EPA, only local measures at the district level. So ahead of this new attainment plan deadline, we're already beginning to work with CARB and EPA and having discussions about the challenges, as well as needed research and other potential emission reduction measures that will be required. So we are ongoing implementation of the current district air quality strategies in addition with CARB's mobile source strategies. These will again assist in us meeting this new standard, but more will be required. So that concludes my updates and would be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Emily. Are there any EJAG member questions from Modesto?
I do. For the Central Valley, having the attainment of PM 2.5, where everybody has an emission, we have a complication. It's not only emissions, but also the environment itself. And we have no leeway from the US EPA. Is there a methodology or a reason why we cannot just go for specific emissions instead of agricultural byproduct or growth from the disturbing of the earth and whatever? It just seems like it's not just the emissions, it is the environment. So in my simple mind, I believe that we're being punished by the area that we live in, not from what we're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much for that comment. I think that just emphasizes the challenge that we have. It is really due to our topography and meteorology here in the valley, as well as a lot of other factors. We are currently looking at potential analyses to see what is that quote unquote background level of emissions here in the valley and what that looks like, and how we could get into attainment. So I agree, there are a lot of challenges that we face. that make it extremely challenging for us to meet these standards. There are some considerations for events such as wildfires or other exceptional events for us to exclude that data. But yes, unfortunately, due to the challenges of our region, that is why it's so difficult for us to meet these standards.
So there isn't any leeway from the US EPA on environmental versus man-made?
No, unfortunately, all of those emissions are, counting against our region. So it is due to a lot of the factors that we face. And I think that's a great point to bring up. We are a very special region with regards to our topography, meteorology, tropicity emissions here in the valley. But that's why we have to go above and beyond every other region.
So why are we punished? For example, non-attainment or non-conformity, we're getting punished by the US EPA. It's not just you're not doing your job. You're being punished in transportation funding and other funding. And this is environmental justice. Isn't this justice?
Through the chair, I can help answer just a little bit. I think what you're highlighting and what Emily has emphasized and what I heard discussed at the board meeting last week is just that we have a lot of anthropogenic and biogenic is sort of what you're discussing, like things that aren't even produced, they're just naturally occurring. There's also transport to consider. There are a lot of other factors, right, that are beyond our control is what you're discussing. As it stands, the way the Clean Air Act is, it's a standard that everyone has to meet. And there are factors that are taken into account when we do modeling that account for those types of emissions. And that's sort of what drives how we have to achieve reductions in order to meet those standards. But as Emily mentioned, we're going to have to try a different path than most people because of all of those challenges. Just because they're biogenic and anthropogenic doesn't mean that it changes the air that folks breathe. So that all of the health standards and health studies that went into creating or deciding on what this new standard is really based on what is best for public health. And so because of that, we just have to work together more with CARB, with EPA to do their part. And I think that's what Emily is really emphasizing is that we've done a lot of our part. There's still so much to be done on the federal level and so much more to be done in partnership with folks to make sure that we can try to meet those standards. But again, all of those factors are included in the really robust modeling that we do to try to understand all of those challenges. So from what I hear from you and what I heard from the board discussion is just the immense commitment to continue to work toward those challenges. We do have, it seems like a short period of time because it is, but it just really emphasizes all the work that we have to do together over the next, several years.
Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, SB. Sorry.
Okay, I just had Emily, thanks for your presentation on the workshop that you had, and then like the slide presentation. I don't know if that was shared with us or not, but if you could share that, that would be great because I know I'm going to have a lot of questions from the community members that weren't able to attend the workshop. So I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
We can definitely send those over to you, and we're also working to publish the recordings of the workshop as well, so those will be available online. And I'll work with Katrina to get that sent over to you.
This is Dennis over in Modesto. Just for Emily and Jessica, do we have our congressional electeds at the table for the San Joaquin Valley in these conversations with EPA and everything that's going on? No.
And maybe I'll have to check and get back to you, but I just, in terms of the way the conversations with EPA, this isn't, our one-on-one conversation with them. It's a nationwide conversation that happens sort of through the EPA administration that comes up with this. So it really is sort of executive level federally that comes out with these standards and then communicates it to us. And then we have to work locally. So if that kind of helps answer sort of how it comes down to us. I definitely know moving forward that will continue to be a discussion because it does have to come from all angles, right? We have a lot of work to do federally, and there has to be that continued conversation.
Yeah, I think with especially with the demands on us, pertaining to the Valley, I think it's a good idea that we're constantly in contact with our federally and state elected officials to. I mean, if you're not at the table, you don't have a seat at the table, you're not going to know, right? You're not going to be in the conversation. So that's my comment. Thank you.
And to be clear, I just want to make sure that we are constantly in contact, and I believe there was a lot of executive team, even up to Samir, that were talking with electeds just this week about all of our challenges. So I think this is just one of many, many challenges we continue to talk with folks about. So I want to be clear that that's always ongoing. So thank you for that, and I'll make sure to pass that along.
Great, thank you.
Yes. Okay, I attended the workshop, and I think during the workshop, there were so many suggestions that were made of things that can still be done here. So let's just don't throw up the hands on the air and say we did everything. Now EPA is at fault. Now CARB is at fault. We got to own the responsibility, because a lot of these things are continue to be emissions that are man-generated, not only something that appears in our air because of our topography. So let's start there. So for example, the indirect source rule is something that has not been taught for decades. We have been bringing this up, and I think we would, at least personally, I think it's something that the district can go back and look at. Ammonium reductions that have been pointed out by environmental justice advocates for many, many years as well. Ammonium is a precursor for PM 2.5. What are we doing? Why are we're not considering that in the modeling? So that continues to be a path that is untackled. The third one, I gave an example that day. We still have a lot of exemptions for the fireplace use. And I'm sorry, if we are in non-attainment, we would have to take more drastic measures. Who needs their fireplace at 1 p.m. when there's 62 degrees? That's my experience. I was running, and before I saw the smoke, I breathed the smoke because, you know, I'm very sensible to that. And it was a home that had their fireplace on a Sunday at 1 p.m. and I checked my phone, it was 62 degrees. I'm sorry, but I don't understand who needs that. So, and when I made the report to the air district, they said they were exempted because they have a propane tank in their backyard. Those are the loopholes that we need to be closing. And I'm not saying we do not have to work with CARB and EPA. I agree, but we also need to look at these additional measures that could be taken locally so that we can reach attainment. And yes, the new standards are very, very strict, and if we haven't been able to reach standards for 20 years ago, let alone these new ones. So just wanted to point that out. And to the point that Mr. O'Brien said, that is not justice. I think that I would strongly recommend that we, and I think we mentioned it briefly, we need to understand what environmental justice is, because environmental justice is something very specific. It's about low-income people of color being more burdened by pollution, and that's the case for air pollution. Yes, the valley completely is polluted, but more so people who live, let's say, in South Fresno versus North Fresno. So just definitely justice is important, but environmental justice, which is our mandate here, is about making sure that people who are more disproportionately affected are taken care of.
I wasn't suggesting that the man-made items not be addressed. I was addressing the environmental issues are compounding, and we are subsequently penalized much more than other portions of the nation.
So, and I don't want to take any or argue with, because you're kind of an expert on the whole EJ thing. But when I came into the whole EJ thing many years ago, when it first was getting going, one of the things, much of what we're dealing with, even in environmental justice, is a level playing field without even getting into the disadvantaged communities. I mean, there's certain, when you talk about the valley, it's pretty much the same for everybody everywhere. As far as when it's bad, although there are pockets where it's worse for different reasons. What really got me involved in the EJ thing was when I was reading about these mega power lines going across the backs of schoolyards in the lower income neighborhoods because nobody wanted them in the other parts of the neighborhoods. That's what got me into it. Or they were building homes for the lower income people in areas that are really sucky areas next to freeways or next to factories or things like that. Now,
that doesn't mean that I believe that if the factory's there first, that's not fair that you build there and now we're going to make the factory leave. The people that paid to put the houses there in the first place, they're the ones that should bear the brunt of that. Maybe even moving those subdivisions or covering the cost for those businesses to not be put out of business when they were there first and there was not an EJ concern because you didn't have the people living there at the time to be negatively impact. There's been a lot of areas that this could be taken care of in more equitable ways. But that's what brought me into the whole EJ thing was when I really looked into it, I was saying, you know, rules and regulations, and especially for the district here. In the beginning, the whole EJ thing was really, we have to make sure that rules and regulations that go in don't actually end up favoring non-EJ communities, and that the EJ communities are covered and protected, and that's why they even started that here. So I just don't want to lose sight of that part of the vision too. You know, there are some things, you know, God forbid the Pacific Rim gets more active, and God forbid Mount St. and not forget St. Helens, Mount Lassen or Mount Shasta go up and blanket the whole valley with, you know, 10 feet of crap up there that's going to take 3 years to go away. We don't have anything in place that would suspend all of these rules when the rules wouldn't do us a bit of good. There's nothing we do. That's when we would want to be able to take that money and use it to help close up people's homes and protect them from what's coming down the line. But so there's a lot of things that we still need to be looking at that help not just EJ communities, but also help everybody. And I think everyone has kind of gone along with that too. So I just wanted to pontificate for a minute, but we're basically always on the same page. So.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to highlight and address some of the things that you said. We heard and noted down all of the comments that were received. We are doing a robust evaluation, and we will be including commitments in this new PM 2.5 plan to go above and beyond what we've already done. So by no means are we just stepping back and saying, carbon EPA, you need to do more. It's a combination of all three. So I appreciate those comments, and those are heard. So thank you so much.
Mr. Grewal, do you have anything that you wanted to add to the discussion?
No, I think I'm just absorbing the language and everything that is being discussed, but I think I will soon. I'm a sufferer of asthma, and it's something I think I've developed just here in Bakersfield along with other family members. And my having a good day or a bad day is very dependent on the air quality. And as far as man-made sources, I think if there were different types of laws we could implement for farmers for over-disking the ground, that could possibly, or regenerative farming, those types of techniques are something that we could definitely explore, that we can not only capture carbon, but also reduce the PM particulates in the air as well. It's probably something that is a lot bigger than just a quick discussion, but that could be something, that's something I've been thinking about. That's pretty much all I have for that.
Okay, thank you. And we'll recognize that Mr. Freitas has joined us. Thank you, Emily. That was great discussion. That was a great update. Thank you. Okay, we'll go on to item number 8, funding and outreach for reducing fireworks air quality impacts.
Through the chair, I believe we skipped item number 7, which is the EJAG incentive spending plan that we just had the subcommittee for.
That's why my hand was right there. I did skip it. Yes, so I give that update.
If you want, or through the chair, I can help provide context if you'd like.
Jess, I would love for you to help provide context.
I'm happy to assist. And just as an update for Mr. Graywall, this is Laura's technically second time, but really first time fully chairing the meeting. We did have a chair election last meeting, which was just a few weeks ago. And so that's kind of why I'm stepping in a little more. But yes, I'm happy to provide a little context. So just as a reminder for everyone, we talked about this at the last meeting, but EJ, or the EJAG, so Environmental Justice Advisory Group, you all play a pivotal role in helping work with us to make sure that our incentives funds are really meeting the folks that need it the most. That's especially our disadvantaged and low income communities, our environmental justice communities. And so we just had a subcommittee that was appointed last month that met this afternoon at 4 p.m. And we had just enough people to attend, and they voted to approve one small change to last year's recommendations, but otherwise approve the same recommendations that went by last year. So just as a reminder, I believe everyone has the recommendations in front of them, or maybe. Yeah, we can pull them up. I think some folks that were available, but we might have to pull them up on the screen or see if they're, if SB, you can share your version with folks that are with you. I think we might not have printed out all of them, but essentially I can just have Laura read out the one change that was made and was otherwise approved. And then the role of EJAG here today is just to discuss the subcommittee's recommendations, and if approved, would just go forward to our executive director for inclusion in our spending plan, which would be adopted at our June board meeting and implemented starting in July.
We need to take a vote.
So this is, yeah, so just through the chair, this is an action item. So I'll pass it to you. Laura, our chair, is the perfect. And so what'll happen is we'll pull the presentation up and we'll get to slide number 4. Which is just
no, it's
correct.
not.
Yeah, so it was in the paperwork for the. This is the presentation from the grant subcommittee. So not this slide. The grant presentation. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, no one here has that information.
Yeah, so slide number 4, sorry to confuse everyone. Slide number 4, none of these recommendations changed. The only thing that changed was we just added language for number 2 that just really emphasized that this is to support assisting truck fleets to transition kind of in the face of all of the rules and regulations. Other than that, all of the recommendations that are here before you are the recommendations that came out of the subcommittee last year as well.
So what was the change?
So specifically what the change was to number 2, on-road heavy-duty vehicles. And it was to have a little bit stronger language so that it reads something like that funds be set aside and allocated to provide support for heavy-duty truck fleets transitioning to cleaner technologies. Funds are for the retrofitting or replacement of on-road heavy-duty trucks for fleet operators, and then it goes on. But that was the language that we had decided it needed to be a little bit stronger, and that did come out of Bakersfield, the Bakersfield office. John Sanders suggested that, and we approved that. Mm-hmm. Other than that, there wasn't any other changes. Was there any discussion from?
Yeah, I'm lit up.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and start with you, Derek.
So if we're talking about more robust funding for the fleets, I would like to suggest that we modify that just a little bit and specify that a certain percentage of the funds be specifically targeted to the small owner-operator fleets of 1 to 3 units, which are predominantly the size of fleets owned by members of the EJ communities. This is something that I think, and then whether it maybe be 25% or 50% or whatever, and then the rest could go wherever the rest would go. But that way you don't have the money going to these Amazon type fleets, and so that's why I would just
like small.
They call them the small owner operator fleets are considered 1 to 3 trucks.
I think that's a perfect position.
So even if it's just 50%, we don't want to say all has to go there, but you could say 50%. But that's been kind of a common. Yeah, but 50% would be acceptable to more people, I think. And
well, but I will make the caveat though that yes, there are the Amazons of the world. However, there are larger companies that I mean, they don't make the money to transition. I mean, it's very difficult. So I would be hesitant
Then we could do a lower amount, like 25% to the smaller ones.
That would be.
You could tier it. 25% to the 1 to 3s, 25% to the 4 to 7s, and then the rest goes beyond to the larger units.
Through the chair, maybe I can help add some context as well. A couple of things to add. These are voluntary incentive programs, so we can't necessarily require folks to take advantage of the funding. But of course, we can make sure that we do targeted outreach and have a special, and I think it really actually goes to the line that was added by Mr. Sanders in the earlier meeting about supporting folks. And that support, I think, comes more than just from funding, but from my understanding from the subcommittee, that support was also assistance in applying and making sure folks are aware of the funding. There are also different compliance deadlines for the various types and sizes of the fleet. So that kind of helps direct the funding, and the funding will be less available to the larger fleets that have earlier compliance deadlines anyhow. So maybe naturally through attrition, there will be a targeted approach toward the smaller fleets. But I do believe that and correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Chair, that line was added to that effort to support, even though we didn't call out small fleets, just to not make it very specific. That was the discussion, was supporting folks, making sure they understand how to get to the program, making sure that it's not just the large fleets that are taking advantage. And so I don't know if maybe that already takes advantage without necessarily having a specific percentage target that might not make sense given kind of the timing and the size and the way that the funding is allocated.
Correct. That is correct.
I got a question.
Okay, go ahead, Keith.
So Mr. Cunha addressed this issue, I think, last time in the last meeting. His concerns were the numbers and how he says that it's an impossible feat to be able to have these trucks converted. So does the district have any plan at all to address that? How would you call it? A potential impossibility.
I'll just kind of clarify again. Mr. Cunha, who's been in discussions with us, both here and through his membership on the CAC, is talking specifically about CARBs regulations and not necessarily, there's no district regulation on trucks, and he's talking about the difficulty in meeting CARB regulations. From my understanding here and reading the EJAG's recommendations for grants usage, this is supporting what Mr. Cunha is talking about and directing as much funding as we can towards converting trucks to the cleanest available technology.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I don't know if this would be the right document or where, but sorry that I'm going to beat this horse to death, but I get annoyed. When they told me that they couldn't, do anything with the person that was using his fireplace at 1 p.m., I'm like, at least you inform them about the options of cleaner options. And the inspector said, no, I didn't. So could it be that we not only are telling them, hey, replace it, but actually that there is a companion in the enforcement department that when you guys go and check and see, oh, this guy has a propane gas. Well, we're not going to find him, but we're going to give him the information, or her, whomever, that this is a cleaner source, that there's these incentives available, etc. So it's like even a more targeted education followed by the incentive money, which I think right now they're two separate lines and they're not touching each other.
Through the chair, I believe that happens, but it sounds like we need to double check and make sure that that's continuing to be the case. Typically, the way that we approach compliance is compliance through education as well. And so it sounds like the feedback that Ms. Martinez got was that was not the case, and we'll just make sure that that's included. I don't necessarily know, since that's not a spending plan issue, that it needs to be included in your recommendations, but we'll definitely take that back.
I was going to call for Modesto, but you want to go?
Were there any comments from the Modesto office?
Yes, this is Dennis Brazil. Question on the number 2 item up on there is just a coincidence. I got a call last week from a from a 1 to 3 trucking operation. And the way this reads, it's a little deceiving that it's just talking about fleets, but if we are going to include all trucks. And the question that they had called me about was that they inquired with the district about the truck replacement program. They got the information from the district, and then the turnaround time was so long that they were discouraged. They ended up selling the truck out of state and used that money to purchase a newer or new truck. So I'm just wondering, Jess, if you know what the criteria is, and are we backlogged, or what's going on with that?
Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, this is Aaron Tarango. I'm a program manager in the grant department, and Brian Dodds is here as well to answer your questions. I think in this situation where the lead time, the money we have for vehicles right now is electric trucks, and the lead time to the electric truck could be what pushed him out. Perhaps they're anywhere from a year to 2 years to get an electric truck. Even a diesel truck now, if you order one, it's about the same time. To be honest with you, 1 to 2 years. So my assumption would be in this situation, without knowing too much detail on it, that the electric truck's going to take too long to get here. They needed something now, and they might have sold it for more money than they maybe would have purchased it, would have got, or I don't know the details of it. But they probably did that to get a newer diesel truck, a 2010 compliant 0.2 NOx grams per brake horsepower truck, is my assumption. But he is correct. The lead time to get a new electric truck or a new diesel truck is very long right now if you order one.
Okay, and it was diesel. Sorry, I didn't clarify that. So he was looking for new diesel, and
yeah, we don't have funds to diesel. Yeah.
Okay, that's what it was then. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Randy, did you have anything you wanted to add to the discussion?
I just had a question on that number 2 item. It says, for those operators operating primarily within the environmental justice areas, those are defined in the EJ map, but are those the only areas that this incentive program is qualified for, or how is that monitored? And if somebody goes outside that area, is that something where they're disincentivized for that?
When an application comes into us, we sit down with them and we actually have like a map that shows them their routes. So we kind of dictate where they operate by the routes they have and what EJ areas they're touching to see how we can help them and try to gear funding towards those EJ communities by the routes that they travel on.
And to be clear, and I think this is something, especially as we talk about EJ training and maybe in addition, just kind of understanding the valley's EJ makeup, most of the valley, especially in terms of truck routes, is on that EJ map.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you can see I'll entertain
the motion. Okay, so is there any public comment in the north regarding this item?
No public comment in Modesto.
Any in the south?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
And any in Fresno?
There's no members of the public in Fresno, and there's none online.
Okay, thank you. So then at this point, we need to call for a vote to a motion, call for a motion to adopt the recommendations.
To the chair, I move that we adopt the recommendations from the subcommittee.
I second.
Thank you. We have a motion
Don't
and a
they
second.
have to address the changes? Didn't make any changes.
Through the chair,
yeah,
I didn't hear any changes from the subcommittee. And okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Martinez?
Well, yes.
Mr. Graywall?
Yes.
Mr. Freitas?
Yes.
Ms. Gutierrez?
Yes.
Mr. Brazil?
Aye.
Ms. Vielma?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Okay, through the chair, motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we are on to number 8, funding and outreach for reducing fireworks air quality impacts.
Hello, good evening, Chair and members of the group. My name is Robert Gillis. I'm with the district's Air Quality Science and Planning Department. I'm going to get started with a few slides here and some background on the fireworks topic, and then I'll hand it over to Brian Dodds, who's over to my right. So just as an introduction to the fireworks topic, I think we can recall too, but just pollution from fireworks, it does impact the valley's air quality on holidays. primarily like July 4th, which is Independence Day, but also on other days like New Year's Eve. And I think there's also some other celebrations that happen throughout the year where people use maybe Super Bowl or different types of events. There are toxic chemicals that are present in the fireworks, and those fireworks emissions are particularly harmful to human health and definitely a public health concern. And that's also at the neighborhood level. These impacts can occur from the neighborhood types of fireworks, not just the large shows, but also, the real local when you do it in the street. So on November 29th, just last year in 2023, the district's governing board did approve recommendations to promote practices that would reduce the use of fireworks throughout the valley. It would reduce also the related harm and exposure that would come from those types of emissions. That included allocating up to $250,000 in funding for a pilot incentive program, which Brian will talk more about, and then also coordinating an outreach with cities and counties who are doing these larger fireworks shows, and also engaging in and supporting the local and state efforts to reduce the availability of use of illegal fireworks. So in response to the governing board's direction, the district had launched the Clean Alternative to Fireworks Pilot Incentive Program earlier this month on February 5th. So just some topics on the air quality impacts from fireworks activity. So historically, the Valley has experienced poor air quality on evenings that have this more significant fireworks activity, so like 4th of July and New Year's Eve. Impacts are really magnified when the airflow is stagnant, so the emissions just hang around and they don't have really anywhere to go. The wind isn't moving them out. So this it leads to increased concentrations of PM2.5 and also the toxic pollutants that are found in those firework emissions. So the air quality on the evening of July 4th, this is kind of one of the more active dates. We can look at that. Quickly deteriorates right after sunset, which I think we can all be familiar with. That's when the neighborhood fireworks displays become a lot more active as the sun goes down. So as a bit of a representation, I'll walk through this graph here and just a couple of details, but this is a graph showing from just a few select air monitoring sites throughout the San Joaquin Valley, PM2.5 concentrations, hourly concentrations throughout the day on July 4th, and then the following day, July 5th. The dashed blue line, vertical line in the middle, there's just that break between the two calendar days. So you can see on the left, the bottom axis is the hours of the day. So around the 18 to 20, that's about 6 p.m., 8 p.m. July 4th and 5th, so that's 2023. So just last year, this is real data from the air monitoring network here in the Valley. We can see these very large increases in PM2.5 concentrations. And that does correspond with when we think, the sun is setting on these summer nights and when people are really increasing that activity. So it's pretty evident when we see these hourly concentrations that there is a direct connection between the fireworks activity and the air quality becomes very poor. And then it drops off very quickly. So it's kind of a quick response. And sometimes, extra activity through the night into the next day can also, we can see additional spikes that can happen in the air quality concentrations. And then just as a reference, the colors on the graph and the background relate to the air quality index. So at the very bottom, the green is the good air quality index. And then all the way up towards the top, the red and the purple are the unhealthy and very unhealthy groups. There are studies that show that 60 to 85% of fireworks emissions are in the ultra fine range. So this is particles that are smaller than PM2.5. And due to this very small particle size, these emissions are much more likely to be inhaled deeper into the lungs. And so these elements and the metals that are found in the fireworks emissions, they're not the same as typical PM2.5 in the Valley. They're much different. And the exposure to the heavy metals can lead to development of reactive organic species within the lungs and multiple adverse health effects. And also exposure to the high lead concentrations As I think all of us would be familiar, lead has been identified as a health risk by the EPA. It's also present in the fireworks emissions. And the graphic on the right of this slide is something that the district has put together and that we use for communicating during the time of the year when fireworks activity is expected, like 4th of July. There are also public safety concerns and other concerns related to fireworks, and that's both the residential type of fireworks, but also the illegal type. There's certainly a risk of fires due to the sparks and the embers that occur, especially when there's dry conditions in the summertime. And these lead to potential property damage, but I think also actual property damage is documented every year. And there's noise pollution that's definitely a significant concern. The noise causes stress to wildlife, pets, and residents in the urban areas. And fireworks do contribute to also littering and debris that can be harmful to the environment. And the inherent safety risks with the July 4th fireworks, they lead to potential injuries and burns and accidents. And so this is just some data just for reference. 10,000 to 15,000 people nationwide treated in ERs for firework-related injuries annually, and there are some deaths that occur. 20,000 fires annually, and in 2023, we just kind of representative here, but connected with Modesto Police and Fire, and they issued 45 citations last year, and there were 274 police and firefighter responses. Then that's just in Modesto. And now I'll hand it to Brian.
Thank you, Robert. So given the significant health and public safety impacts that Robert just described associated with 4th of July and other similar days, many areas throughout the country have opted to transition away from the traditional large-scale fireworks shows and move to alternative shows such as drone light shows. Areas such as Lake Tahoe in California, but also in Texas, have moved to these types of displays. And these drone light shows, if you haven't seen one, there's some cool YouTube videos out there, but they utilize a fleet of drones fitted with LED lights to create patterns and shapes. Oftentimes there music that might coincide with that to put on a really cool show. And these serve as really kind of a new alternative to the traditional firework displays. They're very unique, they're customizable, and eco-friendly in their use. Depending on the size and complexity of the show, what we found is they can range anywhere from about $20,000 to $100,000. So there's significant cost associated with implementing these types of displays. So in terms of trying to encourage these alternatives here in the Valley, such as a drone show, our board recently approved, as Robert described, an alternative program, a pilot program for clean alternatives to fireworks. This program is currently open and accepting applications until March 1st of 2024 so that we can get applications and approve them and contract them ahead of the 4th of July holiday. Applications are being reviewed for completeness and eligibility for program funds, and then we'll move forward with funding them based on the application submittal and their location and availability of program funds. We have a district website that hosts application information and guidelines documents at the link below. Just to give kind of a quick overview of the program and what it entails, we currently have up to $250,000 available in funding that we want to spend throughout the Valley. Eligible applicants would be public and private entities that host publicly accessible shows throughout the district. This could be a nonprofit. Sometimes they host a fireworks show at a local stadium or public park, or the cities or counties that are kind of putting them on themselves. Applicants must show that a substantial reduction of large-scale fireworks will occur. So if they previously had a fireworks show and those will be reduced by some amount, that's information that we're collecting, or this drone show could offset the use of those fireworks essentially. Eligible costs include the cost associated with putting on the display, and also any permitting and insurance costs that are associated with putting on the event. Incentives, we can provide up to $50,000, up to 75% of the eligible costs, which is consistent with most of our other grant programs. We want to have some buy-in by the applicants and that this is something that they want to do. And funding is limited to one show per entity per calendar year. So if somebody like the Fresno Grizzlies, for instance, wanted to do one, we could do one at their location during the year. In terms of next steps, we're going to continue to outreach to interested cities and counties and nonprofit organizations who are interested in these displays. Certainly EJAG can help get the word out about the program. March 1st is, I think, next Friday. So rapidly moving through the year. So we've got about another week that we'll be accepting applications where we'll review and approve the eligible applications. And then once we have these in place and we know that they're going to happen, we want to work with EJAG and the community groups throughout the valley to promote these opportunities to get people to go and attend and kind of check them out. And really the goal is to have people attend these and enjoy them and be less likely to use other fireworks throughout the holiday. So that concludes Robert and I's presentation. We would be happy to answer any questions that you might have for us.
I do have a couple of questions. The application period is starting March 1st? It's
open right now. It started earlier in February. We're going to accept applications until March 1st at 5 p.m.
Okay. The other thing that occurred to me is like a lot of high schools' homecoming celebrations sometimes involve fireworks. Are those entities some of the ones that you will reach out to or are reaching out to?
We've been kind of reaching out to a pretty wide variety of activities and jurisdictions, and those certainly would be eligible for funding under this pilot program. And the goal really is to see, does this work? What's the demand for it? Yeah. And is it something that we can kind of replicate on a larger scale moving forward?
Okay. Those are my questions and comments. Derek?
Interesting. It's a good study. So what I'd like to see would be after July, your primary target really is going to be July 4th. I mean, that is the big one.
And Christmas.
And well, I don't see too many fireworks on Christmas here.
New Year's. I was just checking my phone. Mm-hmm. I received the run alert. The only 2 days of last year that I received a level 5 was July 4th
and New Year's
and Christmas.
Not New Year's. It was Christmas. Huh. That is the strangest thing ever. But that is where I was going with this. And since you looked that up, was I'd like to see a report for us to look at. August, September, when you've had a chance to crunch your data, how many people applied for it? What kind of money did they get? What do they do in lieu of fireworks? And I'd like to have a monitor placed at each one of those events. And I'd like to know what the actual reduction that took place was, so we can see what we're getting for the money and to see and check viability. That's would be just like kind of a feedback on how is it doing what we hope it would do, and then we'll know if it's the kind of program that we want to continue with. We don't want to become restrictive just to be restrictive. It's got to have real benefits, long-term benefits.
Yes, I think I kind of follow your idea. I just think that it might be difficult because you don't have a baseline. So all these numbers right now are based on the closest regulatory monitor, right? North Fresno, Clovis, whatever the case might be. And if you are going to go, and that's the data that are giving us, but you're telling them to go and let's say that they they give the Chancey, the park downtown money, they could go and put a purple air, but the data that you have to compare it is what it was measured out of the monitor in Central Fresno. You know what I mean? So you are not comparing apples to apples.
How can we get around that?
I don't know. I will
maybe getting some monitors at those places where they're doing fireworks everywhere, so we have that as an actual spot. Get those in place this year for the places where they don't apply for this, so that we know next year if they're still continuing the program. So because these things don't happen overnight. Sometimes they took 2 or 3 or 4 years to get them
Through the chair, you know, I can maybe just moving forward, you know, knowing this is a pilot program and knowing that at least in terms of implementation of each one of these through the applicants, that's not a requirement that we like put in through the program. But I think what I'm hearing, I think there's, you know, hopefully there's no argument that that July 4th spike is due to fireworks. And so what really this program is to see as we start to reduce fireworks, maybe over time, if it's successful and we find that at these individual locations it's successful and we start to transition away, we'll get better understanding over time of like the regional pollution. As you can see from that chart, it's not necessarily one specific location that spikes.
Right.
It's obviously valley-wide. It's across the board. That spike is very evident at every single monitor. And so it's possible that even that measurement might not be necessarily the best because depending on dispersion conditions, you might have smoke in the air from all the surrounding fireworks, all the illegal fireworks, all the local fireworks happening at homes. So maybe we'll just continue to report back, to have those discussions, see what the data does come back and you know, see if there are changes. And then moving forward, if we do continue past the pilot program, think a little bit more deeply leading into the next phase of the program about monitoring and requirements regarding that.
Keith, you have something?
Yeah, so my concern is why is the cutoff date marked 1st? I mean, why you guys can't push that out a little bit more? It seems like you asked for help from EJAG to spread the news, but we only got a week.
Yeah, so the goal really is to get applications in now so that we can contract them and they can get things lined up.
Understand.
July 4th is about 4 months away.
Yeah.
So there's still quite a bit of work that they'll need to do to get these things in place. We've received a number of applications so far.
Oh, you have?
We have time over the next week to accept additional applications. We want to ensure that there's representation throughout the valley and they're not just concentrated in, you know, one city or whatnot. So the idea was to bring this to you guys. Yes, it's a short amount of time, but we're not asking for a lot on the applications. And if people are interested, it's a pretty straightforward application to turn in and submit. If this is successful, the goal is to, you know, broaden this out and do this more frequently and have more funding available throughout the valley.
I'm just curious who those parties were and how they found out about the program.
Various cities and counties, and we've outreached through listserv. We've outreached through some of our governing board members. There was a press release, I believe, that went out in early February that they found out that we provided information. So we've been doing outreach and connecting with folks who have expressed interest, and I think the word has gotten out there to some extent, but certainly any assistance that we can get is appreciated.
You know, it's in my opinion, this is kind of like one of those things where what Derek was saying, it's kind of a national event. Used to be based on 4th of July was a celebration of what? Do we know? Does anybody even know? Do we lose? If we lost context of what the celebration was originally for?
You mean like Independence Day?
Like Independence Day. So like, you know, it's kind of like pushing against a big wave, I think. And
mom and apple pie.
And you know, and I'm conflicted with this myself because my wife thinks it's a big bunch of malarkey that they spend that much money blowing up fireworks in one night. So I'm in contrarian with my family, my wife, and so that makes it a tough deal. But I kind of feel like even on some of the things that were brought up, noise significance, causing stress. I mean, we got police sirens, fire engines, ambulances. We've got gunshots going off in the city all night long. We have ambulance fire. We have all kinds of things that spark dogs to get excited and picked up. So I'm really not sure if I follow the line on pets for the noise pollution part. The other thing is, don't we have like designated areas in the valley already, maybe through the state, where there's no burn locations and no firework locations, there's 0 fireworks allowed? I know where I live, there's a big sign that goes up every season. No fires, no fireworks, and they even have the fireworks display. is there a chance, an alternative, that we could have these in maybe try to one of the measures to try to use to eliminate the volume would be to have one big location where people could come, a bigger location, and we could have a mastered fireworks display for each county, or one in each county or two in each county. That would eliminate everybody and his brother that has a gymnasium or a football field to do fireworks for money, for profit, you know, selling food from food trucks. And I think there's a lot of that goes on now. A lot of it's motivated. The party that goes with the fireworks show is kind of motivated by that. So my suggestion would be to think about outside the box, maybe that we just, maybe the district finds a big space somewhere in each county and they just limit the fireworks show, maybe put more monitors and controls on the type of fireworks that they can use and the time limit on when they blast them off, to try to limit that. Another thing I was going to ask you guys is that on the, on that graph, you're showing this graph right here, and you're saying that this is a 1 day, it's like an 18, 20, 22. Are we talking 3 day spike there, 4 day spike? What is that spike?
3 hour spike.
You think it's a 3 hour spike?
Yeah, sorry, just to cover
spike.
on the, that axis down there is actually just the count of the hours through the day. So if you think about it like on a 24-hour clock or military time on that, so I was just making that connection that the 16 is like 4 p.m. and the 18 is like 6 p.m. The 20 is 8 p.m. So there's just counting the hours. You know,
I was wondering if I was looking at that in a broad, you know, back up at 30,000 foot and looking back down at a big pie chart graph to seeing what everything pollutes the valley, all the pollutants that we're dealing with, how big of a light would that be on that graph?
Yeah, and thinking about questions on the quantity of emissions, would really relate to the actual activity, and is certainly not something that the district is tracking of, like what, people reporting exactly how many fireworks they're shooting off or igniting and things like that. I think that would be a part of the information that would be helpful to understand the magnitude of the emissions from the fireworks. I think part of a related way that we can understand that is by looking at the monitored air quality throughout the valley. That's one of the ways that we try to understand it. But in other things, with sources of emissions that we have more inventory on, we have better ability to estimate like how much emissions are actually coming from maybe a wildfire, depending on what's burning. But I think it's a little more difficult with fireworks. Just in my first thought on that, I think we'd see if you're looking at like an aerial map of all the counties in the San Joaquin Valley, all 8 of them, you'd probably see a lot of little circles all over the place, as opposed to, maybe a wildfire that's in the forest and you can see the perimeter of the fire, maybe better estimate like how many emissions are really coming from that. It's an interesting question on the size of that bubble.
That little bubble. On the laser shows part, I have a question on that. Do you guys have any idea or any data that supports or can help us shed some light on what comparative costs? Like you say, it's $20,000 to $100,000 to do a fireworks show. Do you guys have any comparative costs yet with your data on what a laser light show would cost, for example, or what an alternative drone show would cost? I mean, do you guys have any idea?
Yeah, so the drone shows are $20,000 to $100,000 from what we've seen.
Yeah.
Laser shows are probably in the same type of ballpark. For a 30-minute show on 4th of July, we've heard anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 for those types of activities. So, the costs are in line with the activities that are already going on, but because kind of the new technology and the what it takes to put on a drone show like that, they can be a little bit more expensive, which is why we're hoping that we can offset the cost and encourage more of some of that adoption.
So I'm thinking like 20 to 100,000, we average that down to about, let's say 55,000, and we've got a 55,000. That gives us what, $250,000 to work with. So we have 5 shows. We have 5 locations that can do a light show.
Potentially, it depends on the mix of shows and how much they cost, and if there is opportunities, if there's excess demands to seek out additional funding through our board approval process.
And would those 5 locations be all to the entire region? How would
the goal is to spread them out throughout the valley.
So where logistically, where to where?
So our valley extends from Bakersfield in the south to
Sacramento,
Stockton,
Stockton,
just north of Stockton,
yeah,
up north.
So Sacramento, Stockton, we have 5 shows.
I'm sorry?
We'd have 5 shows basically
throughout the valley.
Yeah, Sacramento,
that's
Stockton.
Stockton to Bakersfield.
I'm sorry, Bakersfield to Stockton. Sorry. I'm just thinking of the logistics of that. If you were to tell people, okay, hey, we're going to replace fireworks. Yeah, we're going to replace fireworks, but we're going to have this show over here. And now we've got a logistics nightmare with traffic for everybody to get to that location to go watch the light show and the drone show. So I'm just wondering if that's part of the component that you consider on that. And let's see, one last thing. The toxic chemicals in the fireworks, are you saying that those toxic chemicals are chemicals that actually, do you have an impact range for that? Are you saying that they impact the entire, within a 50-mile radius, a 20-mile or 10-mile or a 5-mile radius? Or what would the impact of those be?
Yeah, I think it's certainly appropriate to think about the different types of firework activity, or at least I think of that a little bit when thinking about like the Independence Day, of course, July 4th. There's neighborhood fireworks. Those are, also dependent on how much wind and dispersion is occurring on that night. I mean, I think even during the summer, we can expect there, any given night would maybe be a little more windy or less windy. So there's, those can be really localized neighborhood level emissions from the neighborhood firework activity. I think the more aerial fireworks, I think certainly have probably a better opportunity to disperse farther distances. And due to the nature of like the heavier metals and the different types of those emissions, I think that they would settle down to the surface and to the, to the ground level more quickly, not quite as far. So there's,
do you have a radius idea, like 5 miles, 3 miles, 2 miles?
Yeah, I don't know too much about, the height of those aerial shows and,
they go up 150 feet, they pop. And if it's not windy, they come pretty much straight down within a mile. I don't know, I wondered if you guys did data on that at all or studied that as part of the toxic,
It's not something that I'm prepared with. I certainly think that there's possibilities to do something like that. I don't have the, something like that. But I do think within those, those heights, it's just when in the atmosphere, the differences in the movement of the air is too much different from what would be at the surface anyway. And due to the heavier metals, I would imagine that they're going to settle out pretty close by to where they were ignited from.
Could you refresh
allowing me time.
You're welcome. Could you refresh my memory as to where this came from, the program came from?
So this topic, the impact of fireworks throughout the valley, was a governing board study session item that we took in November to our two-day study session that was in Modesto, examining a lot of topics. And that item had some of this information and a recommendation to launch a pilot program to look at alternatives. And so that's what this program kind of originated from.
Okay, thank you.
I have a comment. Okay. I personally think it's a good program. I think that I don't care if the toxics disperse 50 miles or 100 feet. I think we could see this as an opportunity for education. I guess a lot of us who are parents wouldn't like our kids that are playing with those or supposedly having fun doing these fireworks. If the parents, if they would know that what the toxics are that they are being exposed the children to, I think these type of events that are going to be funded could also be an opportunity of an education about what is in these fireworks. Not only the regular pollution, but other aspects that could have health impacts. So think about it.
I'd like to respond to that. So we're talking about fireworks that are one day within hours versus a wildfire that spews toxic smoke across the entire state for months. just as a comparison.
Sure, but we can control if you do fireworks versus the wildfires that are more.
Probably shouldn't have the crosstalk going on, folks.
Yes.
No kidding.
I think that's getting a little too, you know.
Through the chair.
Yes.
So we can. Then I know we got to go to the other offices.
And we still have other offices.
Right. Exactly. So real quick, one just simple question. This went to the governing board.
Wait a minute. You're talking about the fireworks now?
I'm still on the fireworks thing.
Somebody to stop talking about fireworks, and now you're going to continue.
I had just one quick question, so it could move on.
Okay. I just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah. One quick question, Keith. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to offend. I just wanted to know, as you know, for full complete transparency, whose brainchild was this originally? Was it a staff members, or was it somebody from the governing board that asked staff to look at this and bring it back? Because I'm just wondering where it actually originated and kind of with who.
Yeah, through the chair, I can kind of provide some context. I don't have the exact, origin, but this has been a topic of discussion for years. Actually, that graphic that Robert provided, that was the outreach graphic about the toxic emissions and the impacts. That's been a community discussion, and I believe a discussion we brought to the EJAG last year, just informational, not about the fireworks alternatives in general. But we have heard it in over time from various bodies and various members of the public to look into alternatives, and that's why this is being launched as a pilot program to help study what kind of what those effects are.
Thank you.
I suggest we move on.
I would actually, Keith. No, because we have not heard from the other offices yet. So I would like for the Fresno office to cease discussion until we hear from the members in Modesto and in Bakersfield. So I'll go with Modesto first. Mr. Brazel, Mr. O'Brien, if you have anything you'd like to add to the discussion.
I do. I don't know what the outcome of your expectations are, but the 4th of July, when it was celebrated in 1776, after it was passed somewhere like mid-July, it was proclaimed that the 4th of July will be celebrated through military parades, political speeches, and fireworks. We've gotten rid of the military parades. We don't want them anymore, and the political speeches are eternal. California has a statute. So we're going to have to get rid of the statute that authorizes fireworks be sold for a 7-day period prior to the 4th of July. And after the 4th of July, the setting off fireworks for an additional 3 days, which will allow for those who cannot celebrate on the 4th to participate. You have to take a look at also what you want to give up. Some of your nonprofits, religious organizations, and civic organizations depend on fireworks sales from Phantom, TNT, and others. So what you're asking is to give away usually a major portion of their nonprofit revenues on this occasion. Distinction between a legal firework and an illegal firework not as clearly defined in the pollutants. The city of Riverbank, City of Action, has been for the last 7 years going after the illegal fireworks with fines starting at $1,000, second on the date, $2,000, $3,000, and $5,000. That's not a deterrent for the illegal fireworks. We did a laser show, in the city of Riverbank. And it was about a $23,000 venture that was immediately followed by all the illegal and the acceptable fireworks display. You're not going to end it. The illegal fireworks comes flowing from different parts of the country and different countries in the world. What are your objectives? If it's to get rid of the fireworks, then you start at the California law, get rid of the statute, and make all fireworks illegal. Makes it a lot easier going after whatever you're going after. If it's to eliminate the celebration of the 4th of July, doing the last triad, getting rid of that, so be it. I just don't understand what your expectations are, other than having a light show, which we've had and has not been successful in curtailing any of the others. So it is to eliminate the pollution, yes, but you have a lot of I'm going to say individuals relying on this one event for income and also for celebration.
Yeah, through the chair, if I can just help respond, there was so much there, and thank you. I think a lot, we've heard a lot, certainly I think at the philanthropic side and folks that use fireworks as a fundraiser piece. That's something we're continuing to track and look into. I'll just remind everyone that this is a voluntary incentives program that we're offering for folks to see if they are successful. It sounds like in some cases, maybe you haven't seen success, but there are several folks that have already applied that are interested in replacing their fireworks shows with these alternatives. And that's the hope with the pilot program, to provide an option that is different than the fireworks piece. To your point, also, there was a robust discussion during the governing board study session about illegal fireworks and how difficult it is to track those down. We had a really great presentation from the Modesto and Stanislaus County Modesto City Police Department and Stanislaus County Sheriff's Department about technologies they use to track illegal fireworks. So it was just a really great kind of interagency discussion on how that is a challenge, and how, of course, this is not going to help curb that, but this is just one piece that we can offer people as a voluntary incentive program and as a pilot to see if it is feasible to continue forward.
Dennis, did you have something to add?
Yes, please. Thank you. I think it's a great start with this pilot program. A lot of layers to this, right? On to all the detail to it. I think that, you see all the fireworks that are sold in the Valley right now. They say safe and sane. I don't think there's no such thing as safe and sane fireworks. In the city of Augustine 2 years ago, I watched safe and sane fireworks burn 3 houses to the ground. Firework manufacturers, I mean, what's under, who's regulating them and the products that they use to make fireworks, I think it needs to be under the scope. If we're gonna, I agree with Rich, if we're gonna ban fireworks, it should be a state ban and ban everything. And the problem with trying to combat and find and catch all the violators, it starts 7 days before the 4th of July and goes 7 days after. And then now it's just an ongoing thing in the Valley, because they go to Nevada and buy them and they bring them over, or Texas, wherever they're getting them from. It's almost impossible to detect them coming in and out of the state. So it's a whole nother layer, but I think this is a great start, right? We got to start somewhere. I've been saying this for 10 years that in the Valley, I remember years ago where the city of Los Banos had only one fire show. There were no fireworks allowed in the city whatsoever. Pretty easy to catch them then. Nowadays are different, but we have one great tool, and that's the drone, right? Not only could it put on a great show for us, but Fresno runs a ping system for gunshot that it'd be along the same lines of fireworks, that they could dial that technology in to whatever their modeling is on their computer programming. I think you could catch a lot of the illegal users by the drone technology. And then my last comment is that I know from being on the committees locally where I live, the shows usually run about $20,000 or $25,000 for 20 minutes. They're about $1,000 a minute. So around $20,000 to $25,000 for a show. I would encourage that we don't give any money to dual shows. So in other words, if they plan on shooting fireworks off and using drones, that I would discourage that, right? If we're going to convince them to move over, we should convince them not to have any fireworks. And that's my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Randy, did you have anything in there to add to the conversation?
I just had a question. I know this is a pilot program. Is there any thoughts of expanding this with the dollar amount, or continuing this in perpetuity, maybe growing in the future based on the results we get from this first pilot?
Sure, and really good question through the chair. Absolutely. So we want to see what kind of response there is, how much interest there is, and what would that look like, to have a larger program that's available throughout the year. So this is really kind of our first step, kind of dipping the toes in the water to see what we would need to do. And one of the goals of the pilot program is to establish what that would look like moving forward.
Thank you.
Okay, and do we have any public comments? It was just, okay. Okay, great discussion. Obviously, we all have some pretty strong feelings about this subject. We'll move on to number 9, update on commercial lawn and garden incentives program.
Okay, so I will try and go through this relatively quickly, but happy to answer any questions you've got. So wanted to provide an update on our zero emission landscaping program. It's designed to provide operators with opportunities to get into zero emission equipment and replace their old gas powered equipment. So even though commercial lawn and garden equipment represents only about 10% of the small engine population throughout the state, they contribute 70% of the emissions because they are used a lot. Emissions occur in neighborhoods throughout the valley. So you've got community level impacts. 40% of residential lawn maintenance is generally handled by service providers. There's operational exposure to this type of equipment as well. And then significant activities at parks, schools, commercial establishments, and retail facilities. Throughout the years, the district has really led efforts to reduce emissions from commercial landscape equipment and transition to electric equipment. And back in 2010, we successfully completed for about $250,000 in state funding, which the district matched, so a total of $500,000 for a zero emission technology demonstration project. And the goal of that was to gather real world experience and feedback. Since that time, really the zero emission commercial equipment has grown leaps and bounds. In 2012, we hosted a conference to discuss potential opportunities. And in 2019, we formally launched our commercial landscape equipment replacement program. And through that project, that program, we replaced about 550 pieces of equipment. One of the district's largest kind of funding sources for incentive funds is the Carl Moyer program. And that's achieved emission reductions through replacing old gas or diesel powered equipment with new lower emission technology. Funding for the lawn and garden equipment replacement has been included in CARB's SOAR regulation, which has also required manufacturers to offer zero emission technology starting in this year. In June of 2012, we were awarded Moyer State Reserve project funding to support implementation of zero emission equipment. We received $6.1 million out of the available $24.7 million statewide. The $6.1 million represented the largest single grant out of that available statewide funding. So is that what I said? Did I say something different? Okay, I meant 2022. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to clarify. No, thank you. Last year, as we were launching the new funding opportunities that we received through Carl Moyer program, we rebranded our commercial lawn and garden program to the Zero Emission Landscape Equipment, or ZELI for short. And this program provides incentives to landscapers, public agencies, and businesses that perform their own landscape maintenance throughout the valley to replace their old gas-powered equipment with new electric options. And since we launched that program not quite a year ago, we've awarded over $2 million in funding to replace over 860 pieces of equipment. So we're seeing a lot of demand now for this type of equipment now that the technology is advanced to the point where it can be used to replace a gas-powered equipment. The battery life and charging infrastructure is able to support that activity. In terms of eligible entities for the program, it really boils down to anybody that operates commercial grade equipment, and that can be landscape businesses that provide services to residential neighborhoods or business locations, communities and businesses, nonprofit organizations that provide commercial scale maintenance in-house. It can be public agencies, cities, counties, special districts, school districts is really a great opportunity, and that it reduces the noise and the exposure for the students. Those types of entities are doing a lot of their own landscape maintenance. And we've had participation really from across the spectrum. Small owner operators, larger landscape businesses, public agencies, school districts, cemetery districts are really interested in this type of technology as well to maintain their grounds. So just a lot of interest throughout the valley for these types of equipment. They must be located within and conduct 100% of their maintenance operations within the San Joaquin Valley. Of course, we want to achieve these emission reductions here. They currently have to use gas or diesel powered equipment in their operations and have owned and operated the equipment for the last 2 years. Incentives range anywhere from $700 for edgers, string trimmers, hedges, chainsaws, that type of equipment, up to $15,000 for ride-on mowers, walk-behind mowers are up to $1,500, and leaf blowers and vacuums are $1,400. And that can include additional batteries. In that cost, essentially, the vouchers are provided for the piece of equipment, and if there's batteries and chargers that need to be purchased along with that, we can cover those costs as well. Eligible old equipment, again, must be gas or diesel powered of a similar type. So if they have an edger that they want to replace, then they have an old gas powered edger, replace it with an electric version. They need to be in use. We want to take those pieces of equipment out of service and replace them with the electric one. So if it's broken and just kind of sitting there collecting cobwebs, that's not something that we're super interested in replacing. And then the old equipment is taken to a dismantling facility and recycled, so we achieve permanent emission reductions there. The electric equipment, again, must be the same type as the old. It's purchased from a authorized retailer or dealer for that type of equipment. It's electric and battery powered, has to be new, and purchased with a power head. So some of these can, be interchanged, but we want to have the power and the type of equipment that gets attached to it to be to conform here. This is the type of eligible equipment that we can fund. Just a visual representative. Ride-on mowers really have a lot of power. I had the opportunity to drive one time, and I was super surprised at how fast they go. And then you've got chainsaws and hedgers and the push behind equipment again. The program is really simple, pretty straightforward. You submit an application along with the documentation. We approve application and issue a voucher and the necessary documents to put in a claim for payment. Applicant purchases their equipment and destroys their old equipment within 30 days. And then they submit a claim for payment for their approved amounts. And then they are required to own and operate and report back to us for 3 years after the purchase date. And we've had a lot of positive experience so far for users that have made this switch. Outreach for our zero emission landscape equipment program. We've been doing a lot over the last year and participating in multiple in-person outreach events throughout the valley. The picture here was an event that we co-hosted at Young Elementary School in Clovis. We had a lot of participants come out, and they really enjoyed being able to see the equipment and have kind of a hands-on experience. And so we've done several of those types of events, or we've been invited to several of those events over the last year. And we're always looking for those types of in-person events to get out to the community and meet with the end users. And there are additional opportunities. We'd be happy for EJAG to assist with any outreach connections to landscape maintenance organizations, owner-operators, school districts, other commercial users, cities, counties, parks department, and just really anybody who's operating this commercial grade landscape equipment. We'd love to have the opportunity to chat with them about options to replace that with their zero emission technology. So that'll conclude the presentation that I have, and happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
I have one. I know we're talking about the commercial side of it. Is there a residential, like a homeowner?
Correct. So we have a residential lawnmower program. There's a couple options under that program. So you can, if you have an existing gas-powered lawnmower, you can take it in. It requires scrappage, and you can get up to $250 towards as a rebate for the purchase of a battery-operated lawnmower. There's a second option where if you didn't have a lawnmower to turn in, or you wanted to get like a chainsaw, there are rebates for that. They range from $25 to $50 depending on the cost of the new equipment that you're purchasing. So really kind of a dual strategy. There's been a lot of adoption on the residential side over the years. In fact, it kind of feels a little funny when you see a gas-powered lawnmower out there sometimes. And then now the adoption on the commercial side coming along as well.
I have a friend who is trying to resurrect a very old ride-on lawnmower. And I said, why are you doing that? Take it to wherever and junk it and apply.
Yeah, that's
so
great advice. I just wanted
to be sure that I was giving her good advice, that there is a residential component to it. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions, comments. Fresno? Okay.
I just want to say it's a great program. I've bought 4 of the Cobalts already, the blowers, because I didn't even care if there was a rebate on them. They're just so darn good. I will say don't buy the 80 volts. They burn up quick, but the 40 volts, 3 years later, they're still going strong. And they do really, really good. And if there's one thing that's come out of all these programs that is a game changer for everybody, it's this equipment. I mean, it's fantastic.
Thank you.
And so this time I'll go with Bakersfield first. Mr. Grewal, do you have any questions, comments?
Just a comment. I think this kind of goes right along with the fireworks and noise pollution. It seems like if you're working from home, especially every 5 minutes, somebody is using a blower or some type of machine that's just really loud. So I know that this would help curtail some of that noise pollution too. So I think that's great.
Thank you. Modesto, Dennis, Richard.
This is Dennis. Great job on the program. Keep up the good work, guys. It's one of the great programs that the district has. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Maggie.
Do you guys have like a brochure or something?
Yeah, Lucy's got some brochures, right? I can go grab you some before you go.
Well, as I said, I like going out and running and all that, and I see so many landscapers that still use that. So I'm happy to have that in my funny pack and start passing that like if they were candy.
Yeah, let me see what we have, and either get it tonight or get it for you next week.
Yes. You know, they do that too. You know, the landscapers come through the neighborhood and they, post the flyers on our doors. Okay, without any further discussion, we'll go on with item 10, the AB 617 Community Engagement Update.
Hello, you get to hear from me all the time. I'm Jessica Olson. I fail to introduce myself sometimes. I'm the Director of Community Strategies and Resources. So my team does oversee AB 617. I did keep a slide that I generally like to keep in here today, especially because we have a new member on board that just explains a little bit about AB 617. My presentation is very short. I knew we'd have robust discussion today. So I just have a couple of updates, but just a quick reminder. AB 617 is an assembly bill that was passed back in 2018 that provided direct funding resources to air districts statewide. And there's kind of two components that I want to clarify that I think based on our discussion last month. There are funding resources that go directly to communities that are selected by air districts and CARB for very focused funding. Those communities then develop community steering committees that are made up of residents and businesses and agencies that help direct the development of clean air plans and community air monitoring plans. There is also a component of 617 that provides incentives funding for districts to use throughout their region and their jurisdiction in any disadvantaged community in their jurisdiction. And so I just want to be clear. I think oftentimes I do come here and talk because this is usually a 617 update. You've noticed on the agenda, we started calling it 617 and community engagement. It is more than just these 4 communities. But I do think it's always worthwhile to remind us that there are huge efforts going on in these 4 communities that really serve as sort of models, we're hoping, moving forward in other communities throughout the Valley. And there are definitely examples of that happening throughout the Valley. So these are just a list of the types of, or the number of measures and the hopes for the targeted emissions reductions that we're achieving specifically in these communities, in addition to a lot of other work happening throughout the Valley. So this slide is actually, I'm going to talk a little bit about community engagement we've been doing beyond 617. The first is that we've expanded a lot of outreach at local events. The example you have here on the left, this is a tune-in, tune-up event in Madera. That is Senator Caballero. That is our board member McCauley. They are there to meet with residents, to meet with Valley Can, who is the group that we contract with to run these types of programs, and try to solicit excitement about this program and make sure we get more funding into these communities. So this is above and beyond the community air protection funds. We want to make sure we can continue programs like this. I think we bring this type of program, and we had a little bit of a discussion earlier today about how this is one of those programs that we're continually seeing older cars, low-income folks continue to benefit from this program. And so we're just continuing to do that work beyond the AB 617 communities. The picture here in the middle is Terabella. This is one of several small communities that we've been working with CBOs outside of 617 in order to try to not necessarily replicate, but learn from the model that 617 provided in those 4 communities, and try to work with smaller communities and bring the same level of education and resources and outreach and potentially incentive funding too. We do go to some of their meetings. There's one next week that we're going to be participating in. And so it's just another layer that the district has in our community outreach efforts. On the right, I'm just going to provide a brief update. It's been a topic of many of our conversations, and I'm happy to bring it back at a future meeting. I can now confirm that we will be taking to our board really soon, but certainly we're hoping by April, but certainly by May, we will be taking over $1 million in new funding. So that's a combination of some funding that we're getting from SEP funding from CARB that we're getting, in addition to funding that I mentioned last time from EPA. This is funding that we will expend outside of 617 communities. So this will target 6,000 to 7,000 residents beyond 617 communities. So this does not, all of this additional funding will go outside of those. So a lot of the discussion that we had last week was how do we make sure we target those communities? That is exactly what this is for. So we're really excited about it. We will be taking an item to our board and having more details for you later on how some of the comments and concerns we've heard before will be implemented. One of the questions we get often is how are we handling folks on the wait list? And we will be following up with those folks and making sure that the people who have been waiting that aren't in 617 communities that wanted it last summer are the first folks who can participate this time. Finally, one update I wanted to provide that we talked about last time is that we are hoping to host a community engagement summit. I mentioned vaguely last time because we weren't sure that we were hoping to do it in May. We have landed on Saturday, June 22nd for a variety of reasons, but one of which is that there is a tune-in, tune-up event happening on that day that we were looking at in May. And of course, as I just mentioned, that is a really important event that we want folks to be able to attend. But just as a reminder, we're hoping at this summit to convene community members to highlight progress across the Valley. This is not a 617 only summit. It's grassroots organizations. We want CBOs to learn from one another. And we also want to bring one of those cool commercial, electric ride-on mowers. We want to bring an electric mower that folks can get as a resident. We want to bring an air purifier. We want folks to see what an electric car looks like, maybe an electric truck, maybe an all of the different things. We want a vendor fair where folks can really understand all of this type of work that they're helping support. So just as an update, that is the date. We'll continue to update you all, of course, in your capacity as the EJAG to help us with our community engagement summit and just bring it maybe an update every meeting. That's something I can commit to. So that is my brief update So I'll stop there for any questions.
Anybody here in Fresno have questions, comments? Okay, from Modesto. Okay, Bakersfield. Okay. Go ahead,
just to see if I understood. So when are you taking this to your board, and when would the program for the non-AB 617 areas would start?
We are looking to take it to our board in March, but we will update you if for some reason that changes. But we are hoping to open the program no later than the end of April. So certainly well before any big wildfire, situation happens. Typically what we've seen in the programs recently is once the program isn't necessarily starting from zero, so that's good, right? We have continue to have it ongoing. But typically once we launch, it does, there's lead time for ordering and getting the devices shipped. So we're hoping by the end of April, if folks start getting their devices end of May, that's still well before we expect wildfire impacts.
Okay, thank you. So then at this point in time, district comments?
That's me again.
Maybe you again.
Just a couple of quick updates. As you know, just so everyone knows, we've moved district comments to the end to help kind of get to some of the action items earlier. So this now feels a little bit odd since he's been here for 2 hours now, but I just want to welcome once again, Mr. Randeep Grewal to the EJAG. He is serving as the Kern County member at large. And so I just want to remind you all, and we had a really robust discussion with the appointments subcommittee that helped interview and recommend Mr. Grewal's appointment, that we do have 2 ethnic small business owner openings. Those are not geographically based. They can be anywhere throughout the valley. They just have to own a small business. And just as a reminder, it did come up last meeting, and I want you to know that we'll continue to follow up if folks have questions, but owning like a nonprofit is not the same as owning a small business. So that question has come up. And I just wanted you all to know that that will be posted. We'll continue to reach out to all of you. We have reached out to chambers of commerce, to ethnic chambers of commerce in smaller communities. We'll continue to try to be creative on our end, but certainly look to you all to bring us folks. We'd love to have that appointments committee meet again, and we'd love to probably have that appointments committee maybe have several folks to choose from. Might be kind of a nice change. I will also add that during that membership meeting, there was discussed, and it was discussed again here today, the idea of onboarding not only new members, but just reacquainting all of ourselves with environmental justice, just a refresher on maybe like the environmental justice strategy that's in place that sets forth EJAG, but also just the principles and purpose of environmental justice. And it's something that that group was really looking forward to providing and taking next steps for. So we'll work with the chair to kind of identify when the best steps for that would be and kind of what the next step could be in terms of timing and what that looks like. And then I'll just also mention of course, a big thing that we're tracking here at the district, and we had a robust discussion about today, was Emily's update just regarding the strengthening of the annual PM 2.5 standard. Well, that will continue as always, not only through Emily's updates, but as we bring larger items to our board about ongoing plans. That'll just continue to be a topic that we come to you all with, and so we look forward to that. Okay. Other than that, those are all my district updates. I'll take any questions.
Is there any questions in Modesto? Bakersfield? Fresno team? Okay. What?
Public comment?
Not yet. First we got to get through potential future EJAG meeting.
Oh, we don't do public comments on the individual items anymore?
Unless they're action items.
Oh, okay. Good to know. Thank you.
So with that, we'll go with item number 10. I mean, number 12, potential future EJAG meeting agenda items. Obviously, 617 will still be a topic. Anybody else?
This is Dennis over in Modesto. A couple of years ago, we talked about the no idle zones at the schools. I haven't heard much about it since then. Could we get an update on that, on the buses and the residential cars, on kind of where that's at? Thank you.
possibly. I don't know if I missed it because I did miss a couple meetings a few months ago, but did we ever have to revisit the whole ethics thing or the thing online or any of that kind of stuff? Do we even have to worry about any of that stuff? We used to do the Brown Act thing and the ethics thing.
We do it like every 2 years.
Yeah, is that are we due for that again? Now we have new members too.
I'll double check. You mean kind of clarify for me? I know we did the Brown Act training that was during a meeting where Annette came.
That was a while. That wasn't that long ago, was it? That was last.
It was now maybe a couple of last year. It was just a year ago. Yeah. I don't think that's a requirement. If you're talking about required training, I believe there was clarification last year that the required ethics training is if folks are taking a stipend.
If they're getting money.
Correct. Okay. But as that's not currently the case for any of the members, that's not a required training. However, if that's of interest to do a Brown Act training, that's certainly something we can entertain at a future meeting.
Just throwing it out there just in case I get it all the time from different things I do, so. If we don't need to, we have a lot of other stuff that we have to do anyway, so.
I'll also add typically in either the April or June timeframe, we typically come back with our end of season residential wood burning report where we kind of analyze the most recent wood burning season. So I'll just add that we might work with the chair as we set the agenda, and that might be one of the topics discussed.
Might be interesting to hear what some of the positive aspects of all this rainfall and snow have been on what's going on with the conditions that we're dealing with.
It would always be nice to get some good news for change, right? Okay, then at this time, I'll call for any public comments.
Do we have any public comments in Modesto?
No public comment in Modesto.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments in Bakersfield?
No public comments in Bakersfield.
Thank you. We don't have any members of the public in Fresno. We don't have any online comments.
Okay, and then number 14, EJAG member comments. Are there any comments from Modesto? Bakersfield? I know, Randeep, this is your first meeting and there's a lot to unpack. I remember my first meeting and it was a lot. So.
It is, but I just want to thank everyone again for the warm welcomes and your dedication and hard work, and everyone that's involved with these efforts. So thank you again.
Okay. Any comments? Okay, then with nothing else, then I will call for adjournment. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. We made it on time.